Yes, good day, and welcome to the deep dive of The Only Thing They Fear Is You by Mick Gordon from the Doom Eternal soundtrack. So let's dive right in. It's an orchestral epic metal cover, which was quite hard to do because, the original song is very dense, it's in your face, it's claustrophobic, as Mick Gordon said himself. And it's quite difficult to add something as roomy as, let's say, strings or brass. They are recorded in huge halls, lots of reverb, lots of room, acoustics, and to have them sit in a mix together with something as in your face as The Only Thing They Fear Is You, or a Doom track for that matter, is quite a difficult task, but we've done it. We're here. We've done it, guys. Okay, drums. Let's have a look what I've done for these drums. So as usual, if you've seen a few of my videos, this is pretty standard stuff. I add a kick, a snare, and I use them to fatten things up a little bit. Especially the kick and the snare. It says Addictive Drums right here. It is not, it is Superior. Let me just change that. I've used Superior Drummer Free. I started out with Addictive Drums, but in the end I was like, nah, it doesn't work in this mix. And this one does. It's nice and clicky. It's not too dry, so it actually really worked quite well in this mix. It's a very dark mix as well, by the way, so you might want to try and download the stems and try and remix it yourself. I kind of like it that dark because, the orchestral stuff is dark as well. The chords are dark, the brass, the strings, everything is low, the choir, it's impending doom, and with that, I believe, goes a dark mix. So Battery 4, as we talked about, Superior Drummer, nothing special. I use this preset a lot. It's the Progressive Foundry. Once again, mixed within Superior Drummer itself. As you can see, there's an EQ. This is quite standard procedure. Get rid of those pesky 300 boxy sound, and let's see, there's some compression going on, a little bit of punch to make it more snappy, some tape simulation, and again some EQ. And here you see more click and more low end, around 80 Hertz, and the click is around 5K. Now we have the snare. Again, some compression going on. Again, some tape sim to get some drive out of it. Transient. You will see I will use these externally on top of this as well, because you need a lot of punch in these drums to get that Mick Gordon sound. And I'm not close yet, but it works in this mix. But what he does to his drums, I don't know what it is. It's more of a dubstep electronic approach, it seems. Toms. There used quite a bit of toms in this. Normally I tend to stay away from toms. I don't know why, but don't really need them most of the time. And again, there it is, the scoop, which you really can use in toms. Ambience, the kit some compressor, and there's a reverb bus. I use these on the snare. So that's within Superior. If you have a look in Superior, click here, and then you will see that here's the kick. And what I've done to the kick, let's have a listen first. So it's quite clicky, but it needed to be. You sort of see the same EQ moves as you saw within Superior Drummer. You know, again, around 300, that's 300 hertz, that makes your kick really boxy, and it just doesn't really sound that great. So it's all subtractive EQ, and here, this part right here, this gives the low end oomph. And on an external EQ, I used a little bit of around 8K up to 10K just to get the click through. Smash and grab on the kick as well. Kick settings, threshold, not too much. A little bit more beef for low end. Took away a little bit of air. So if you leave it in too much, it really gets airy and too clicky. A little bit of saturation, I believe, and the mix is halfway. So mind the volume, the button right here. You put it all the way, sure, it can be done, but I use the halfway. And this is one of my favorites. I used the Nolly kick preset I made myself. I had a look at one of his videos and saw this coming up. And let's have a listen. It's minimal, right? But it gives it a little bit more grit. Snare. I'm not particularly happy with the snare in this mix. It works, but for a doom mix you really need some more electronic sounding snare. But I tried that and that didn't work with the orchestral elements and instruments. So I had to try something else, and this is the end result. It sounds good, but in my opinion, for a doom mix, you don't want a snare as roomy as this. Let's have a listen first. Right, it has that hissy sound. There is a gate on it, but if I take away too much, you just get the pop. And if I turn it off, see, it's. I had to make a compromise here. Not too much of that high-end hissy sound, and I didn't want the sound gone as well, because then you get a lot of pop. So there's some EQ on it, around 15K. That makes it quite hissy as well. But I needed it to cut through the mix. There's so much instruments going on. And well, you see some moves, of course, scoop a little bit around the 600. I started around 80, 120, and it sounded all right like this, but I needed a little bit of oomph around the 200 to make it cut through. Then we have the smash and grab on the snare setting, mix 100%, lots of saturation, quite a bit of air as well, quite a bit of beef, and the threshold does its work. So I would probably set it up like this now that I'm listening back. DS10 drum shaper. Let's see, it's from XLN Audio. Gives it a bit more attack. This is from the Plugin Alliance subscription I have going on right now. There's this Acme Opticom compressor. Right, that brings out quite a bit of high end. I'm sure you could. There's a blend knob. I can't seem to find it anymore. I think this might be it. Upper trim. Pull on link. Dry Win Max. There it is. Just a little tip. See that? Here it is. It's very unpractical how they set this up, but they might want to have to change that. I tried Supercharger GT. I turned it off. It was too much. It was way too much. Then we have the gate we just had a look at, and the Valhalla room. Probably set it a little bit drier now, around 12. And of course a limiter to take care of the peaks. That goes into decapitator. That's the side chain. And it's parallel compression, so I use parallel compression with smash and grab on it. Threshold, beef, lots of air, mix 100%, and some decapitator on it. Saturation, drive around 3. A little bit of low cut going on, no high cut, and a mix around, well, let's say 70%. So that's the snare. Then we have the overhead. Overhead, let's have a listen. And again, the limiter is completely useless on this one, so I might as well take it away. Mix rack, a little bit of high end, around 7K. That's a good frequency to give it a wee boost for the overheads. Around 6K, just a little bit, just a tad. And some compression. Also a little bit. Look at the mix button here, it's around, well, 15%. That's not a lot, but it helps. And smash and grab. Well, you can see all the settings. Copy them if you like. And give it a go yourself. Of course, taking care of the low end. On the overheads, you don't need low end at all, so I took those out. And the toms, nothing special here, because they're processed within Superior quite a bit. And the room, again, very steep slope going downhill around 360 up to 100. Get rid of all the low end rumble. And some nastiness around 4,000, which is a harsh frequency anyway. 4,000 hertz is, it's quite a vocal range. And on vocals, you might want to use these, but on instruments, I tend to take away and cut off these frequencies quite a bit. And a little bit going around 20K, no, around here 16K for the extreme, almost white noise, high end. I guess that's it for the drums. Let's have a listen in total. Right, I added this one later in the mix. I exported the MIDI into another template, and then I imported it into this one again. You don't need this. You might as well take it away. Some trailer drums. These are interesting as well. So these are really to give the intro way more trailer orchestral feel. Have a listen. Right, that really helps out to give it a more bombastic feel. And here's something I used as well, some drum effects. It's just white noise. Some more effects. You have to excuse the latency here and there because this is a big project, as you can see in the CPU. It's peaking almost all the time, so it's doing all right, but let's see how far we can get. That was the drum effects and the white noise. As you can see, the hot symbol is white noise. I just let it go along with the snare. Every time the snare hits, that one hits as well. Really, really subtle. Okay, let's have a look. I have some orchestral stuff going on as well. So you know, in the ending of the only thing they fear is you get this military-like flams from the snare going. I tried to do that as well. It's not the best, but it works. In the mix. Pretty cool, right? In the original, the main track fades out into the orchestral snare, into the military type of drumming. And then comes a big snare, excuse me, a big choir. But I've not had access to a big choir, so it'll do. Let's see, I have some more orchestral stuff going on here. Trailer hits. Yes, of course, great sounding trailer hits. That is Audio Imperia's trailer guitars. I must have misspelled it. Hits guitars. Okay. Let's add that to the guitars folder. There's some percussion going on. Makes it much more interesting, don't you think? You know, the clock. These two things work so well in trailer music, so I tried to implement them as well. You can hear them here in the beginning as well. Let's have a look and listen to the percussion and the hits here. So what you hear is drones. You know, I gave him a bit of a treatment just to give him sort of a pulsation, a pulse feel. For example, if you would do it here, I would use this plugin called Transgate. And that makes it pulsating, so that really helps to add more tension and rhythm at the same time. These trailer hits. That is the same library as I used on the trailer drums right here. Devastator. I can really, really recommend it if you are into trailer stuff. So that's it for drums and effects. Let's have a look at the orchestral elements, the strings, for example. So these are spiccato strings, really short attack, and some high strings playing the legato line. It's going to play along with the brass, as you can see right here. Same lines, copy paste as this one here. And what I've used is, I believe it's ARC, Metropolis ARC 1 by Orchestral Tools, legato patch of this high strings. And there's a little bit of track delay, as you can see, minus 60 or so. Because most of these orchestral instruments need a little bit of track delay to make it realistic. Audio Imperia even has it at minus 250, I believe. It gives it more room to make it more realistic sounding. As you can see, I panned this one in the middle, the spiccato strings. Panned it a little bit to the left. Mid spiccato strings also to the left. High spiccato strings, I kept them in the middle. These are probably Audio Imperias, minus 140. And you can set that up any way you want, you know, sample start, as you can see here. Turn it all the way up, all the way down. If you turn it all the way down, it sounds less realistic, but then you can play immediately and have direct effect without any latency. But if you turn it all the way up like this, like this minus 250, you turn it all the way down, I should say, then you get quite a bit of latency. If you turn it like 0, there's no latency. Well, there is now, because the project is huge, so my buffer size is set up really high as well. Anyway, let's have a look at the high strings legato, what I did. There it is, OTT. Just a little bit, 21%. Didn't change anything else. Got off a little bit of the high end there. Then the spiccato strings, they needed some work. So again, around 270, 300 hertz to get rid of the boxiness. A little bit of boost around 1. This doesn't really do anything that important. String samples. Let me take you through the sound here. So lots of these string samples libraries and brass around beneath 100 hertz, they have a lot of noise, a lot of ground noise, a lot of foot stomping, even coughing in some libraries, which is horrible. So you need to get rid of those. So I just high pass filter it, whoop, all the way down there, get rid of it. And let's see. No, I just used the low cut. I said high pass, it's low cut. And then we have the virtual channel by Slate Digital's compression, just a little bit, I believe. Maybe I turn it up, and lots of high end around 4 to give it more bite. It really needs more bite. Same here. These are just equalizers. They are great sounding, and especially for strings like these. Again, OTT, free plugin. If you don't have it, I recommend it. 30%, which is quite a bit, but it probably needed it. And some transient designer from SPL to give it way more attack. And on top of that, another transient designer, the Transient Master by Native Instruments, to give it even more attack. Let's have a listen. Huge difference, don't you think? And then we have the strings mid spiccato. Same treatment. Again, it needed a little bit more of a cutoff, around 180. Lots of low end coming through. Noise, just noise. Same setup. A little bit more bite around here. Again, some OTT, 27%, could be 30, doesn't matter. And some attack from the transients. Then we have the high strings spiccato. Again, same setup. OTT, 16%, it's basically the same. Now we have the low spiccatos. You get the idea, right? Again, transient for attacks, compression, and some EQ, FG stress, and a trimmer. We have a cello solo. Sounds like shit. And why? I just use it just to give it more tonal presence and that vibrato at the end. That really makes it more realistic sounding for the other strings. Otherwise, I wouldn't use it. It can sound really good, but I have not set it up right, so I have to make compromises. And let's have a look at that was the strings. Let's have a look at the brass. Okay, there's a new plugin I'm trying right now. This is called Angry Brass by Performance Samples. And it works quite well. It has a really snappy attack without key switching. So let's have a listen. Okay, it needs some work on the modulation, so I've used CT1 and CT11 expression and modulation, and that's all it really needed. To back that up, I've used Reactor 6, Buzzsaw preset. This is a good tip. You can really use it to get rid of the low end and some of the high end sizzle. And very low in volume. It's just purely for backup to get, to back up the brass. Gives it a bit more presence. So on here I use the staccatos of the Angry Brass, and I used 4 horns and the trombones. And that plays along with the strings and the guitar. They go down, down, wow, wow, wow. And then we have, thank you, then we have the Nucleus brass. Again, get rid of the low-end rumble. And some OTT, 21%. And it's Audio Imperia Nucleus. Much recommended, very clean sounding. Maybe almost too clean, but you can use it. And contradiction with ARC, one by Metropolis Orchestral Tools. That's quite dirty sounding, but that sounds realistic as well. There's a lot of noise going on when you record these things, and this one is really, really clean. Well done. I like both. Some trumpets. Also by Audio Imperia, and Forzo by Heaviosity for the low brass. I love this one, and you'll hear why. It's good, right? Really heavy sounding. Let me just check the volume. All right, that's the brass. Let's have a look at the synths. So here's Absynth 5. It's an old one, but it still works well. It has this great preset called Screaming Leader, as you can see here. There's this nice little attack going on, probably through the SPL attacker. Yeah, some OTT. There's a black box analog design just to give it more saturation with these tubes. Then we have Harmer Image Line, also famous by the Fruity Loop Studio host that they are creating. And Doesn't do much. It just gives that more rhythmic feel, more rhythm. Pan to the left, and so it goes along with the strings, which are panned to the left quite a bit as well. So these are both gates used in Silent 1. Again, this is purely all for rhythm. And there's a low synth going on around here. Doesn't do much. Again, it's for rhythm. June, and this one, right, this is the part where that little lead goes. So I've used June, but in the end I used the Legend. It's from the same company, Synapse Audio, Candied Bacon. Just a really high-end, a high-sounding synth lead, and on top of that, or beneath that, I should say, I used this violin to give it a more of an orchestral feel to it. It's drenched in reverb, so you don't really hear it's a violin, but it has that vibrato at the end, which makes it more realistic sounding and according to the rules of orchestra. So that's it for the synths. Let's have a look at these guitars. Guitar left. I used Cabal 8, low tuned. That means I've used these options in here to tune it down 2 steps down. Guitar right, exactly the same. And on both of them I used Easy Mix Frederic Coloss Rhythm left right 1, and on the second one also Easy Mix Guitar Gods Frederic Coloss Rhythm left right 2. And in the middle there's this Odin guitar by Solemn Tones, as you can see here, and it sounds like this. Right, that instantly has that dirty sounding Doom. Only thing they fear is you sound to it. It sounds a bit chainsawy. That's because of this isotope trash in front of Bias FX. And I've used quite some pedals here. There's the gate, compressor, boost, and drive by Keith Merrow. Here's the Misha Crunch amp settings. You can copy these, but you can also just download. Look for Marigold Periphery Alt in the search function, and you will find it. And you can alter it. What I've done is I've turned off the cap. I've turned off the post EQ. And instead of those in Bias FX, I use the GGD Studio Caps Zilla. And this is my own preset Doom guitar cap, but it's based heavily on this Misha Genti preset. Got rid of the boxy 300 Hertz EQ, and I got rid of the low end as well. And this one is interesting here. Yeah, what the fuck is that? Yeah, that's Meat Hook Guitar Match. So what I've done is you have this track from Doom. I believe it's the first one, 2016 soundtrack, and it has Meat Hook on it. It's the track, and a tiny bit of it has solo guitar. So what I've done is I'll let Pro Q3 listen to that part. Then you go down here and you sidechain it, and then you EQ match it with your own tone. So as you can see here, I've just used it like 18% of it. So let's turn this off and let's have a listen. And I've done the same here. This is also taken from a track. I believe it's the part from The Only Thing They Fear Is You, right at the intro. You have this really thin sounding guitar. And I took that EQ spectrum and matched it with my own. So if you turn everything off on this Odin, right, that sound actually doesn't sound too bad as well, but let's do it this way. Well, it gives a bit more of that Mick Gordon feel to it. And here we have the Odin doing some... Basically, I just bounced out the audio, did edit, render in place, render with current settings, and then I panned it left and right, and did some EQ moves on it, and then it's you don't have to use the MIDI and automation. Trader guitars. Tonal Loops by Keep Forest. It's from Devastator, Deathmatch, expansion pack. Sounds really great. It wasn't really necessary, to be honest. It was just for filler. And that's it for the guitars. So percussion, trailer hits. There's a lot of stuff going on. And okay, let's have a look at the group. So the drums, they go into this drum group. And what I have is compressor by Virtual Slate Digital. Slate Digital is what I mean. Smash and grab. I used it on parallel setting because I didn't know what to use else, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. As you can see, the mix is really low. I mixed it in just a little bit. Took off the air, took off the beef, just a little bit more threshold, a little bit of saturation, that's it. And JST clip just to give it a little bit more body. Let's have a listen. Okay, that's it for the drum group. Let's have a look at the bass. So if you see my other videos, you know I use track spacer with the drums. So on the bass track, I load up track spacer. I then sidechain it to the kick. So the kick will come through here. And I let the bass duck the kick. Every time the kick comes in, the bass goes away. Be sure to turn this all the way down. Attack 0, release 0. It's not really 0, but it's the best I can do. And I've got it around 27%. There's some EQ moves going on. I needed these to make room for the brass and the trailer drums. Some compression going on. And some clip to give it more body. Let's have a listen. Next up, guitars. Again, track spacer. These are linked to the bass. And this is the sub bass, by the way. You can barely hear it, but you will feel it if you're in the car or have a subwoofer. So to not let the guitars and bass conflict, I'll let them sidechain each other just a little bit. Doesn't do that much, but it's just a little bit different. Pro MB, there's palm mutes in here, so if you have palm mutes, this is going to take care of them. Even now it's working to get rid of the low-end rumble of the guitars. I was not done. Let's have a look at the rest. OTT, 11%, that's not much, but it gives it more bite. Some Saturn to give it more saturation, a little bit more aggressive mids. Low mids. And here we have the Doom guitar match tone. So basically it's the same thing. I look for a part in one of the Doom tracks which is guitar only, and I EQ match it right here. And I think this might be, yeah, just to get rid of all the unnecessary and unwanted frequencies. This is to see the bass peaks around here, and so I dip it on the guitars to give it room right here. So the bass peaks around here, take away from the guitars, and the bass doesn't peak around here, and the guitars do. So when you put those together, you get a more sort of a puzzle that really fits together. String bus. Orchestral instruments sound really wide, so I had to stereo enhance them quite a bit, 120%. Track spacer, I sidechain it with the drums, so there will be no conflicts going on there, at least just a little bit. Everything below 220 I had to take care of. As on Transient Designer Plus. Let's have a listen. So finally, let's have a look at the master bus stereo enhancer. I tried a little bit, but it wasn't really necessary. Pro Q free. Interesting. So this is from the track that I covered. And to give it more of that same sound, I took the EQ spectrum and matched it with my own mix, around 50%. A little bit of compression to glue everything together. Here's Neutron Pro. It adds some polish Again, Neutron Pro, Sculptor, and add some punch. Saturn, to give it a little bit more of that magic saturation. Infinite EQ, I have no, took a little bit of a scoop around 8,000, I think, 7K to get rid of the extreme high ends. Ozone Pro, I tried this one as well. Let's see what it does. Lindell 50, yeah, sounds great, but didn't need it. So I went back to Ozone 8. Equalization. There's your typical curve for metal music. Dynamics, stereo imager, dynamic EQ, and a maximizer. And to keep a check on the low end, I use this Ozone plugin called Low End Focus, excuse me, and tonal balance finally, just to check if it's okay. And it was okay. That's basically it, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I got the stems uploaded as we speak, and the MIDI files as well. So have a look, copy these things, try them for yourself. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, this deep dive walkthrough. And until the next one, thank you very much, guys. Bye.